Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order this previous meeting for January 15th, and we would like to recognize that we are having this meeting and doing our work here today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lillooet Nation. Any changes to the agenda? Would somebody like to move approval? Again, second by Director Ramsden. Agenda approved. We don't have it closed or Roger report, so we will go right into our delegation. Now we have Emma Gillis joining us. Come, please join us at the table. And O'Shea is joining us online. There we go. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. I think you all know me. My name's Emma Gillis. I'm the Library Director at the Pemberton District Public Library, where I've been since 2013. With me today virtually is Anne O'Shea. Anne is the founder of Craft Strategic, a consulting firm supporting Canadian libraries with strategy, research, service planning, impact assessment, and leadership development. Anne has more than 20 years of library experience. She served as the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer at Vancouver Island Regional Library for 5 years, and then spent 10 years on the leadership team at the Vancouver Public Library. Since 2023, Anne has been working with libraries across Canada in a consulting role, helping clients assess their spaces and services, craft actionable strategies, and strengthen Canadian libraries for the future. We requested to meet with you today just to present the findings of our 2025 Space Needs Assessment of the Pemberton District Public Library. Everyone here is familiar with the space, so you will have seen it undertake several changes since we took occupancy in 2008. This was all designed to maximise the use of space and improve functionality. Faced with rapid community growth and increased and changing demands on the space since COVID, we'd reached a point where no new opportunities to reconfigure the existing space were apparent to us. To continue to adapt and remain responsive to community growth and the needs of our community, we needed to reassess our situation. We used provincial library enhancement grant funds and contracted Anne O'Shea of Craft Strategic to conduct a space needs assessment to determine how effectively the library space is serving the community, both now and into the future. And I will now pass you over to Anne.
Thanks, Emma. Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. It's wonderful to meet with you today and have a chance to share the results of this needs assessment that was conducted on behalf of Pemberton and District Public Library. I had the opportunity to visit your beautiful community and meet with the library staff during that time. So this needs assessment took place in the fall, this past fall of 2025, and it was a full needs analysis that incorporated 3 elements. So observation and site visit, comparative analysis, comparing the library's space to a cohort of peer libraries, as well as to established space planning standards for public libraries, and then engagement with the staff and the board and community partners of the library. And so I think I spoke to a couple of people who are in the room here during that period in our interviews. And this gave me a really good sense of the library and the community and the space that you're working with. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the findings, I don't think the first part will surprise anyone. You have a beautiful and well-maintained space for your public library inside the community center. It is bright and inviting, and I heard over and over again in my interviews and workshops that the space is deeply valued by the community and heavily used. The library director and staff and the board have essentially squeezed every possible drop of efficiency out of the space that they have, which is just over 4,000 square feet. And at this point, it's really clear that a larger space is needed to be able to deliver effective public services. And then some of the sort of components of that challenge, obviously it is too small for the service population. So your service population, which of course is made up of the village and the electoral area, has grown by over 30% since the library opened in 2008 in that space. And is continuing to grow, as you know, as folks who are responsible for your community. It's a fast-growing community with changing needs. The second major challenge is that being located in the community center means that there's a lot of noise transition between the community center activities and the library space. My understanding is that when it was originally designed, the library was anticipated to be upstairs, where that perhaps would have been less of a challenge, but then was moved downstairs because the space was not large enough. And so the noise impacts the library significantly, but it also impacts the community center, who have to sort of refrain from using the space above the library at certain times of day. And then also the library is keen to do more programming with the community and be more of a community hub for partners and community groups to meet and engage. And there isn't a separate meeting space. So that's a big deterrent to that work, which is very important for Canadian public libraries at this moment in time. And the staff space, the workspace that the functional operations of the library take place in, which is out of sight of the public, is much too small for the size of your community and your staff and your collection. So those are some of the pain points that we observed. And then the sort of overarching challenge is really that you need a major space expansion. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. So I have some more detailed recommendations and we can talk about them. They are also in the report, but I think ultimately your community is facing a key decision. You will need to expand the space of your library in order to serve your current and future public needs. And the question that you're faced with is whether to develop a new purpose-built library on a site nearby where you are currently located, or whether to undertake a renovation and expansion in your current location. Next slide, please. That, of course, is not an easy decision to make, and it depends on a number of factors, including your other community amenities and the work that you're doing around budgeting and planning. But whether you stay in your current location and expand or look to find another location, these are my recommendations in terms of what's needed for a space. So you should be looking at a space of a minimum of 12,000 square feet. That will accommodate your population growth to 2045. Your location that you're in right now is a significant strength. You're in a really good spot. And so you should look, and there's more detailed maps in the report, you should look for a similar location to where you are now, right in the heart of the village. You will need within that space a larger workspace for staff. You should be looking for an improved acoustic design, either designed from the beginning for the acoustics needed in a library, or significant additional remediation if you choose to stay within the community center. The addition of a multi-purpose program or meeting room will have a significant impact on your ability to serve the community, both in terms of library programming for children and adults and seniors, but also in terms of working with your highly valued community partners who use the library to deliver services. And I've included recommendations regarding working in relationship with Indigenous communities, so the Lillooet and Squamish-Lillooet nations, which are both within the service area for the library, and how to incorporate Indigenous considerations into the space planning and design by working in relationship with the local nations. And then I've included some recommendations around expanding access to remote communities through use of mobile services and pop-up services, because of course you serve a very large region and it's not practical or affordable for you to open additional locations. So there are some strategies you can use in conjunction with a central location that will help expand equitable access to your services. Next slide, please. I think that's the end, actually, the end of our slides. Oh, sorry. Yes, so thank you. That's a very brief overview. You all have the report, and I am happy, and I know Emma is happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Emma, anything else you'd like to add? Open for questions? We have a little, you're our only delegation, so feel free to take a few extra minutes.
I think Anne spoke very well to the overview of the challenges, that the challenge of the next decision and what we need to do next. We've known for a long time that even when I started in that position, the library was on the cusp of being too small. So this has been something that we've been talking about for a long time, that we wanted to maximize the use of the space. There are some of the things that are definitely going to be actionable, like the outreach, but thinking long term for the community, what's the next best step?
Mhm. Awesome, thank you. Questions from the committee?
Is there a time frame on when this needs to happen?
5 years ago? No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
No, I think that the goal would be the big strategic priority for the board this year will be to look at these recommendations and decide what the best approach is going to be, and then start planning that out. So budget wise, it's going to need at least a 5-year plan, but there are various strategies that we can look at achieving along the way. Like we can look at the outreach, if we can accommodate that into the budget. A mobile vehicle is a little bit more expensive. I have been liaising with my Sea to Sky libraries about maybe some sort of collaboration. So there are things that we can look at in the meantime, but the bigger question is what we're going to do with the space before we invest any more money in the space we're currently in. Is that the best use of funds, or where should we be putting our energies?
And I guess if we were to think of building a complete new library facility, do we have a space to do that?
Well, what's kind of going through my mind is listening to Emma is, we talk about recreation and they're creating indoor space at Dendorf Park. French schools moving out of the community center. There's some moving pieces in there. There's some programming. If we can do something at Dendorf, does some programming go there, therefore freeing up space? And again, this is my first crack thinking on it. I'm sure I've been running this through your head for a while, but I feel like there's some moving parts there that we need to consider. I think my gut is that, building a standalone, finding a piece of land and building a standalone is a pretty tough nut to crack. One of the questions I was gonna ask is if you're aware of, and I think this is probably a question for a couple of years from now when we're closer, but are there grants for library construction and development right now? Or
There will definitely be grants that we can look at, and especially, with the grant that we got for the recent accessibility upgrade, there's definitely going to be pots of money, and we would look at that. That's kind of the chicken and the egg question, because if we're going to go for a new build, it'll be a whole capital fundraising process. And yeah, like you said, there's lots of moving parts. So when we moved ahead with this project, the idea was just to start having the conversations, because we don't know what we don't know about plans for the community center space and other spaces within the area that we might just. It was really just to have the conversation of, like, if something arises that could be a good fit, then we could start having those conversations. But we've reached a tipping point as well of, like, there's other things that we need to do within that space, but before we put more money into it, is that money better set aside and put towards
something you're gonna have to ask every time now.
Yeah.
No, I hear you, and I'm glad we've had this conversation, because there are, again, these moving parts, these different decisions and hopefully opportunities that'll come up over the next couple of years. So let's put it on the map so that we're focusing on it and seeing how we can get it. I blame you, by the way. We used to have lots of space. You got too good at it. Remember when we built it? Remember the conversation in the community was, that's too big, and why do we need such a big library? And we've already gone it.
I'll take the responsibility.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
As I was reading your report here, Emma, which is very extensive, I was just wondering whether partnership with, this is kind of out in left field, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway as an idea, is I know the Arts Council is looking for a place to land and building something. Do you think there could be some synergy there, like in a shared space, a new shared space with?
And I think, Anne can speak to this as well. I think a lot of libraries now are, arts, culture, museums all kind of work well alongside library spaces. So I think we're at the point that anything is up for discussion and to look at a good fit.
Thanks,
Mhm.
yeah, 'cause I just got thinking, oh, and they are looking for a space. For sure, and there's so many components to the Arts Council with.
And I think that's why we've delayed this project for so long, because we know space is at a premium and everybody needs more space. The community center needs more space. And it's that, how do we start the conversation of like, okay, something needs to happen now. Anne has done a great job of pulling that all for us together in an actionable report. So that we can actually come up with a plan for the next couple of years on what it's going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well,
Yeah, and I think-
go ahead, Anne.
Yeah, I was just going to add, a lot of Canadian public libraries are looking at, shared space with similar or related organizations, even with housing, for example. So there's lots of options about what a purpose-built library might look like, and it might not just be a standalone, just a library building. So certainly would encourage you to think creatively about how to incorporate other community spaces and needs into that planning.
Awesome. Well, we'll certainly do that. Okay, thanks, Anna.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much. I will see you in another couple of meetings for budget.
Thanks, everyone. Lovely to see you today. Have a good day.
Okay, would anybody like to pull anything out of the consent agenda? Consent agenda, present. Move to move it. Second by Kenneth, any opposed, motion carries. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll go to 8.1, SLRD CAO verbal report. Ms. Ball.
Hi, everyone. It's Paul, CAO SLRD. I have nothing to report today.
Thank you. VOP CAO, Ms. Tracy.
Thank you to the committee, Elizabeth Tracy, CAO at the Village of Pemberton. Unfortunately, I have nothing today as well.
Thank you. So that takes us to 8.3. It's an information report on the general funding sources for PAWS and Whistler, and we'll.
Veronica Reed, Project and Program Coordinator with the SLRD. So this one is just an information report based on a resolution from the December 4th PBIS meeting that we bring back general funding sources for Whistler Animals Galore and Pemberton Animal Wellbeing Society. So we reached out to the organizations and got their most recent financials and summarized them in this report for you. They both receive long-term funding from the PDIF program of $15,000 per year. PAWS is looking for an increase in their funding for 2026 and 2027. And there was also a resolution passed at the December board meeting that we start looking into a service establishment for these organizations.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the report? That's helpful because that's what we asked. I mean, it's been hard to sort of sort through and both the societies for the good work they do and how those funds get used. So appreciate the report. Thank you very much. Motion to receive then, please. Director Matt, seconded by Director Rabson. Any opposed? Motion carries. 8.4 direction request. This is a follow-up to the 2026 PDIF applications.
Right. So today we're having another look at our 2026 PDIF long-term funding application intake. In summary, we have 9 long-term funding applications, 1 request to increase current funding, and one-time funding requests from 3 organizations. So for both cost centers, we've brought back some new options in response to the December 4th direction, and we recognize that current requisitions cannot support all the allocations. So those amounts are put in, and we did have to reduce everybody to about 60% to be able to fund without raising the requisition in cost center 2108. So in 2108, we've thought of a few new ideas to bring forward to you that might include moving some of the organizations from 2108 into 2109 that do align with the economic development stream. One could be PAWS, as they're requesting new funding in 2109. We could consolidate their whole agreement under one cost center. And then it's kind of like an either or, if we want to maybe move Pemberton Farmers Market or the Pemberton Seniors over as well, as they would fit into economic development, and moving one of those with PAWS would free up the funding to fund everybody in cost center 2108. The other option is declining or further reducing some of the funding in the arts culture rec stream doing that universal reduction of down to 60%. And then there's also the option of increasing the requisition, which would be able to fund everyone at the levels that we originally brought forward. But it does only leave about $8,000 for 2027. So using those PVIS edited amounts from December 4th, it would leave us about 16,000 in 2027 if we increase the requisition. And the adjustments for 2109 worked well. We are able to fund everything as PVIS adjusted and absorb those applications from 2108 should you decide to move them over. So we're looking for direction on what approach you'd like to take, and we can dive in deep to these options and go from there.
Thank you so much. It's super helpful. As we saw and experienced last time, it's a struggle, right? There's really awesome groups. We want to fund all of them. And your report definitely helps sort it out a little bit. I'll open it up in a second. A couple of thoughts that I spent a lot of time thinking about this because it's so hard to say no or to cut down any of these requests. And I went through the report several times, and I don't know if it's me being wishy-washy, but what I came up with personally was sort of a little bit of everything. So in other words, let's look at moving some to 2109 to make some space. I don't want to personally raise the tax requisition at all, but certainly not significantly, because I know we're going to be facing other budgetary pressures here, you know, library, everything else that's coming. So I'm leery of raising the requisition. However, even if we move stuff into 2109, we see that there's a heightened demand for these programs. We know that there's going to be an increased demand. So I would say we increase the requisition a little bit just to keep up with the times as we grow, you know, as we go, even though we can potentially accommodate it in 2109. So I would have said, I want to go through all this with the group. I would like to suggest that we move some to 2109. We consider a slight increase in the requisition just so we're moving forward.
So like a CPI in.
Kind of something along those lines.
Yeah.
And the third bit is I still think we need to go through these requests that are listed out here one more time. And maybe cut or transfer some of the funds. And where I struggled with it is, you know, in the past there was less applicants, all very well meaning, all great groups. We've supported in ways we can. Now we have groups coming forward with so many different requests. I'm looking at like the athletic based ones as an example. You got volleyball, gymnastics, soccer, Devils Alumni Association. I think that's all of them. No, there's a swimming lesson. So, but the other ones are all providers of athletic sports type services for our community. Some of them are asking for $12,000 a year. Some are asking $4,000 a year. Like this PYSA, it's their first application ever. They're asking for 45, I think is what's down on our sheet. How do we put a number to this now and moving forward when we look at the value of what people are asking? The gymnastics club, we provide, do you know off the top of your head?
12,000 a year.
12,000, and they're asking for an additional, whatever it is, $7,000 on the air conditioning. Very important work for them. They can expand their programming. I want to support it. That would be $15,000, $19,000 to that group for one sport. Then you got PYSA. How many members do they have? We're going to give them 4,500 in grant. The alumni covers a dozen and hundreds of kids at the high school. So I don't know how we ever get to a point where we could sort of put it to numbers to give us and future committees an easier time to figure this out. But when I look at $12,000 for gymnastics and the air conditioning, soccer's getting 45, and alumni is getting maybe 10 or. And as we've said in the previous meeting, we want these groups to continue up the fundraising. The alumni, which I used to be part of, you know, did a lot of fundraising, but finding that difficult. Now they're looking for other sources as well. I don't want to replace their fundraising entirely at this table. So it's something I've struggled with. So it makes me want to go through each of these requests one by one again. I did it like 10 times. Deep into the night last night again, going, okay, well, $500 here and $900 there, and it didn't make. At the end of the day, it didn't make a huge difference. But I think it's worth considering and maybe either moving or reducing some of the applications requests. Does that make sense the way I laid that out? So again, threefold. Let's up the requisition a little bit at the end of this conversation. Let's see what we want to do. Maybe a little bit to keep things growing, but let's move some to 2109 and let's consider these each in their individual. You guys. So, is everybody on board, first of all, with the idea of moving to 2109 to make some more space? So, you know, whatever makes sense. To me, pause is an obvious one, and either the other two options really. I don't
There's
see
a
one.
slight difference in the amounts of Pemberton Farmers Market will be 8,000 moving over, whereas the seniors is 10,900. So moving seniors gives you a bit more space in 2108.
So you know, with that said, I would suggest we move the seniors over. Yeah, and then we go, is everybody good with that as a starting point? And we'll go through the list.
Yeah.
So the first one on, if we go to the appendices, the first one is the volleyball club. And again, we don't have to decide right on, like, I was comparing them by sports, I was comparing them by services, I was also using the metrics of, well, we never used funding before and they've gone from 0 to 10,000, or, you know what I mean? Or they did get funding before, so. So yeah, the first one is the $7,500 for volleyball. I don't know if anybody wants to start jumping in here, I'm looking for hands, seems to be right in the range of what most of the youth and sports groups are asking for, but. Any thoughts on the volleyball for now? And we'll go ahead, Director Ramsden.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, you're saying 7,500, the number I have for whatever reason is that they're requesting 9,800. Yeah,
if you go to the appendices.
Oh, right, never mind, sorry, okay, sorry, I just found that, yeah, okay.
The 75 is what we used as a starting point last night in December that they were.
Right, thank you.
Any suggestion over here to make this easier?
I guess we just wanted to highlight that based on the numbers that were discussed at the last meeting, if you did move pause and seniors, then both, like all the amounts that were discussed at the last meeting would fit. So just keep that in mind when you go through these.
I thank you, and I recognize that. I was just looking for a little bit of equity in terms of the asks and setting us a bit of a standard moving forward, going, a group comes forward, goes, we want to do this, we need 20 grand. You know, it's the same thing for me, you know, when we get to Chamber and Tourism Pemberton, two business type groups in our community, very important. Tourism, you know, Chamber was a little more conservative in their ask, tourism went for it. You know what I mean? Like, how do we divvy up this money fairly, right? Tourism Pemberton's doing great work, so is the Chamber. Should they be getting an equal amount? Well, Tourism Pemberton asked for more because of their projects, so now we're considering more. Next year, Chamber goes, wow. Tourism Pemberton requested another 25 grand and one time. I'm gonna request it this year. So somehow we have to give ourselves a bit of a baseline to work from, whether it's economic groups, whether it's sporting groups, whether it's just community groups. Is it based are we making a decision based purely on the ask? Or are we trying to find some other equitable way of doing it? Do you know what I mean? That's where I struggled a little bit going, okay. Yeah, and I don't want to pick on any one of these because they're all really good applications. But yeah, I guess the reach, what is the reach of the funds we're providing the community?
So what it comes down to is, if we were to fund all of these, we're short 23,041.33.
As it is now, but if we move.
So we just gotta,
But if we move pause and the seniors to 2109, then we have, between the two funds, we have enough to cover all the current applications. As highlighted in red there, those numbers.
okay, so. If we were to base like making it a larger requisition, just based on CPI, so 2%?
2.7, I think was
What-
what's current, Colin?
What is it? It's 2%, 2.2, or?
Yeah, it's around 2.2%.
It's 2 for November, but they haven't announced December.
So-
Yeah, but that's about where we're at.
Yeah, somewhere.
So just for reference, in 2108, a 2% increase would be an increase of just under $2,400. So it would go jump from 119,000 in 2025 to 121,457 in 2026. That was the desire.
I think that, I think what we need to do is right from the start, whatever CPI is, that's our base. That's
I mean, it's a good starting point. It's,
because if we don't do that, as I've told you, like, so, you know, I went through this when I worked for the city of Richmond. You know, and if you do this 0-0 stuff, it catches up to you. And then all of a sudden, somebody has to make a decision. So if we just do CPI, if we have the money to do more, that's very nice. But that should be our base point.
I think it's wise to continue, and it doesn't face, these funds don't face the same CPI pressures that our other budgets do
Yeah.
necessarily, but I think it's still. What I recognize is when we did this 3 years ago, it was a lot easier. We had enough money in the funds, both funds, and we could make sure the value is there for the community and make decisions. This is not gonna slow down. We are gonna get increased demand for these funds every year.
Yeah.
So we could take, I don't wanna say it's the easy way out, but we could definitely transfer funds into 2109 and cover everybody's request, but this problem will be back next year. So I think we need to grow the fund a little bit. But I think we as a committee, and I think staff's done a great job trying to simplify this fund for us. We have to come to a point where we understand the reach of these asks. How many people do these dollars reach? Right, and therefore put a bit of a number to it that way, as opposed to. I need 15 grand for this and 5 grand for a new HVAC or whatever, you know what I mean, like it's a little bit too loose that way. I think it was fine when we had enough to cover, but the demand is gonna grow, so again, I agree. Let's call it 3% increase in both funds, let's put that as a starting point and see what that looks like for the upcoming budget, so. I'll look for a motion in a few minutes, we'll ask for both funds to get a requisition increase of, we'll start with 3%. We can go up or down from there. In that resolution, we'll include moving both PAWS and the senior center to 2109. And then again, I'd still like us to look at each one of these and go, is this a number we're comfortable on each of these applications? Does that make sense? So, right, so again, starting with volleyball for now, I'm happy to leave it at 75. Let's go through the rest of them here quickly. And like I say, I did this 10 times and maybe ended up with $900 difference by the end of it. But let's do it again as a group. So $7,500, let's leave that for now for volleyball. Senior Society, they've never had funding they had one-time funding of 7,000 last year and nothing before that. And they're asking for $10,900 a year. Again, that's where we go from 0 to 11, almost $11,000. That's a fairly big jump. Let's just say her understanding that we want to support all these things, want to support it. Do we start a little bit lower? There is my question. Do we give them $8 grand this year and ask them to do some of their own fundraising and see where it goes next year? Or do we leave it there?
Well, so if we do 8, that's. How about we do 8,900?
And then, yeah, we can come back.
Yeah.
We can change it when we do that.
That saves us 2,000 there.
Pemberton Youth Soccer, so I'll leave it, is everybody cool with that for now, 8,900 there? I know, right? And stuff, and again, we can come back. We can go either way. Somebody.
I just want maybe to flag that when I said that everything fit within the requisition, that was based on the numbers, the reduced numbers at the last meeting, so.
The red highlighted numbers.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So I believe that was, we're on the ball.
We're on seniors.
Okay, never mind, thank you, then that's great, sorry, I was thinking. I'm trying to put it all into a spreadsheet here, I was updating the wrong one, so.
No.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you. Pemberton Youth Soccer. Very big reach, a lot of kids in that program, they're asking for a fairly modest $4,500, I'm happy to leave that there. Does anybody has thoughts? farmers market, $8,000 a year. You know, they need to operate, I'm happy to leave that one there unless anybody has thoughts. Sea sky invasive Canadian species, that's $1,000 a year. Also pretty modest. Thoughts? There for now. Red doubles, 10 grand a year. That's another big sort of jump from 0 to, I mean, they were asking 12.5 originally for 5 years. We put down 10 in December. Do we want to leave that there or? Thoughts? You guys gotta help me out here.
Well, how about we do 8,000 a year for 5 years? And just figure it out. Just put that number in there and see where we end up. Cause that went from where to where?
And it's funny because it says we didn't do any funding before, but didn't we contribute to their annual fundraiser, or was that through a different?
I thought we contributed to their annual event.
And you did it, because maybe we did it at the village and you did it separately, is that how it is?
Yeah.
Did that come to our CEF?
Yeah. Not from.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just feel that it doesn't hurt for the kids to raise some funding themselves and, you know, have a stake interest in their team. You know, I think we can reduce it a little bit, help them, but, you know, I think,
We support the 8,000 that Russell suggested.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put that in there for now. Healthcare Foundation, also one that didn't previously ask for funds. They asked for 15 times 5 years. We potentially put down 8 in December. Thoughts on that? Yeah, and my comments on that, like, I want to support them as well. I also still feel it's a little bit weird that we're pulling from taxation over here to support the Healthcare Foundation. And we pull for taxation for the healthcare regional district, or the possible regional district. So yeah. How do we feel about this? Go ahead.
but Mike, you could look at it this way, that the support is enabling them to raise funds from the foundation for different events that they want to put on.
Mhm.
So it's sort of enabling them to help themselves.
Case, yeah, for sure, absolutely. That's the case with a bunch of these groups too. Our seed funding lets them go after and leverage that. So what does that mean? Right now we have $8,000 down. Do we leave that or do we edit that one? Charlie, anything? Somebody?
I think we should leave that one. See where we go, see what we end up with. Sadly, I mean, there's so much is happening, say with our health foundation and our clinic. I mean, that should be top of priority. We want to keep it as functional as possible. We don't want to put ourselves in positions that other communities are in, so I think that's a real priority.
Anyone else? Good. Chamber of Commerce. They asked for 26.5 a year. We put them down for 21.5 a year. I kind of, for some reason, want to look at this and we as a group said we should start focusing on looking at a service area for our economic development groups, but in the meantime, I kind of like looking at both Tourism Pemberton and Chamber at the same time in the same light. I just think it's interesting, again, so Tourism Pemberton, for instance, is on the books for $20,000 a year. Oh, I had a question on that. They're on the book for $20,000 a year, and then they have 5 one-time requests, which we talked about last time. The 8,000 for the visitor center. Last year, how did we do it? We did 20,000 plus 8. Is that how we did it?
Yeah, the chamber returned the
Yeah.
$8,000 and we gave to tourism.
So it was 20 grand, so the 20 continuing plus 8 straight up for that. And last year, like snow clearing and that sort of thing was sort of included in the 20, right? It wasn't separate one
They
time.
had another request, I think it was $2,000, and they still had 1,600 remaining because there wasn't much snow.
Right, well, it doesn't snow in Pemberton anymore, so. Okay. Okay. So yeah, where do we want to go with those two, Chamber and Tourism Pemberton? Chamber asked 26.5, we've got 21.5 down right now. For a year. Anyone? Go ahead, Director House.
This is difficult. I'm at least for the chamber with what we had suggested on the December 4th meeting. I'm of a mind to keep that as it is. But okay, yeah, and then. But how we deal with it, like you said, kind of considering that in the same breath as tourism is, to my mind, I'm wondering if for tourism that we do. I know they've kind of got 2 separate requests almost, is to kind of between the 2 requests approve a number similar to what we're approving for the chamber, and. I don't know, that was just a rough thought that I had, and I don't know if that would make any sense.
Yeah, when I was thinking about it last night, I was wondering if we wanted to actually increase the Chamber of Commerce a little bit from the 20. They asked for 26.5, we said 21.5. That's been a group tested and true that have done work for the community. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a new thing. We want to see what they can do, what their reach is. We know what the Chamber's reach is. I think their ask wasn't a huge, it's too much for us to accommodate the full ask, but I'm prepared to go like 22.5 or 23 for Chamber. To say that.
Do 25?
Less. They're asking 21.5. Like I said, I'd go 23 just so sort of cut the difference.
Okay.
That makes sense to you? We said 21.5 in December, and like I said, just looking at it and comparing to the others, I feel like we can put them back up a little bit. So 23 for now. Laura, good with that? Okay. Pause. Obviously a tough one. There's a very big request. They asked for 40 grand for 5 years, and we've got them down for 10 grand for 2. So well, it's the 10 grand in addition to the 15, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have it down for 2 years? Is that?
Their agreement is 2 more years, and with the idea that we're gonna be looking into a service establishment that could take that long, we could revisit it as
see.
a new application or a new service.
So the Pause is already getting $15,000 a year. They've requested another 40. We've potentially put down 10. That would bring their total funding up to 25 grand a year. Thoughts? Go ahead, Director Ramsey.
I mean, when you put it in the context of what they're asking, it's a significant cut, but I think this is difficult, but we're in a situation where we do have to start limiting and cutting requests. And I think in light of the fact of how much they're already receiving, I am comfortable leaving it at the 10,000 that we're talking about for now, with the idea that we may be looking at, longer term sustainable funding over the next couple of years.
Okay.
Good.
Pemberton Arts Council, they currently get $12,000 a year. They received another one time last year, with some waiver fees. So they've asked for another 3 on top of their 12. That would bring them a total of $15,000 a year. We had them at 3 in December. You wanna change that or leave that as is?
I don't know what to say on that. Sorry.
I think I'm comfortable leaving it at the 3,000 additional at this point. But I'm open to thoughts from everybody else. Leave it as is for now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 3.
Well, it's 3 on top of 12, they get a total
Yeah.
of 15 every year, yeah. Worcester Gymnastics, they get $12,000 every year, and they asked for an extra 7 for air conditioning. We considered 35 in December. This is, one of the ones that I looked at and went, "Ugh, they get 12 a year. What's the reach compared to the other sports programs?" I'm kind of inclined to, as much as I hate to say, inclined to say we don't support the AC. We give them the $12,000 a year. But say Lord.
Well, maybe
as
they
said it.
support the AC and we,
Well, the other, I feel like they'd rather keep the $12,000 a year than reduce that. You know what I mean? Like they've already got, and what year are they on?
They're just into year 2, I believe.
They're on year two of $12,000 a year, 5-year contract. Go ahead, Laura.
I guess my concern is, from a safety point of view, if the building is not functional without the air conditioning, so it's, it raises a safety issue, kids getting overheated, whatever.
What I heard is that they just don't run programming when it's that hot, so
Yeah.
by having the AC, it opens up programming extra weeks of the year.
Yeah.
And then it's. Right, Laura?
I was wondering, do we have any idea of maybe kind of the comparative reach of something like the Pemberton Volleyball Club versus the gymnastics? Because I'm trying to put this in perspective, and I understand we do already fund them. We fund them $12,000 a year. If we were to do something like 3,500 this year, it effectively bumps up their funding this year to 15,000. And I'm just trying to put that into comparison to some of the other sporting groups that we're supporting, and trying to find some level of parity because, yeah. So
It's going to, it's 50 grand and maybe, and I know you've worked to simplify this whole process for us, which is great. I think for especially for sports groups and some of these clubs, it would be nice to include in their applications membership reach, something along those lines, just so we can have a little bit of a number.
Matrix on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that's not a perfect number either, right?
There's some.
But it's something, right? But in the absence of that right now, yeah, like I think you and I both are saying, Laura, like that comes to 15.5 in funds for the gymnastic club. Soccer, big reach, big membership there gets 45. I think we stayed at 10 for the Devils. Did we stay there? Yeah. Big reach. So when you try to get that parity, it's
it gets difficult. No, but that actually, you know,
We went to 8, we're giving the Devils alumni 8, and they have hundreds of kids.
yeah,
And now we're looking at 15.5 for them, so I wanna be able to justify this to myself and to the people that are asking, right, like.
no, and that's also why I wanted to bring that up, because now that we're talking about that, I do, you know, again, I'd love to be able to fund everybody, and I like, you know, the money that they would be putting this towards would be great. It expands their operational hours, etc. But I'm kind of tempted at this point, given what we're looking at for this year, to say no completely. And the one thing I do look at this is one consideration. I know this is not ideal, but this is an air conditioning unit. Maybe it means that they can't do it this year, but possibly that means, you know, next year they could do it, and maybe they could do some funding, fundraising for that this year, and then next year we're looking at, okay, well, it's $1,500 to be able to get the, you know, the unit that they actually want, and that might be something that we can then work with at that point.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. What do you two think?
Well, I sort of think this is a private organization, isn't it? Sort of, it's not like,
Well,
or
no,
is it sort of funded? Okay, the original, they were worked out of the Pemberton Valley Community Center, right?
But, I mean, Jen brings up a good point for clarity.
But isn't
here.
this based
None
out
of
of,
these are businesses.
No.
They're paid coaches and paid administrators to keep these organizations.
okay, so
running.
it's not
There's no
a,
profit on any of these.
okay,
So remove the AC for now?
Yeah.
Yes. Info. Ecala Valley, they asked for $2,400. We said potentially $1,500 if they get the PAC, the Parents Advisory Committee, as opposed to the school to apply. So, any thoughts on this one? $1,500.
I think that's, yeah,
Leave that there.
yeah.
Anyone think otherwise? Yeah. Tourism Pemberton. So they are getting $20,000 a year. On their long-term funding. In my mind, the 8,000 was always there, like that's for the visitor center. I don't even include that in 1 to 5. Like, to me, they should get 28, and then we consider 1, 3, 4, 5, and then for the one-time requests. Does everybody agree with that? Like, I feel like we've agreed in the past that the $8,000 from the visitor center was a given. So that's 20, so there is 8, 12, there's $22,000 in more, $22,000 more in one-time requests from TP for slow food, fall wellness, Nairn snow clearing, and marketing. And joking aside, I imagine the Nairn snow clearing is probably pretty low. But yeah, what do we want to do with those? If you look in the highlighted red, we suggested 15 as a starting point in December. That includes the 8, so that would be 7,000, an additional $7,000 towards those other 4 events items. I'm inclined to reduce that a little bit, but I want to hear from you guys. Go ahead, Laura. I know you want to speak.
Yeah, okay, and I say this, like, I, you know, have spoken with Pemberton Tourism on another number of occasions in different areas, and they're trying, I think it's fair to say that they're, you know, they're working to kind of maybe like restructure, revamp, and really become that much more effective. And you know, I think they do have a lot to offer, but again, just trying to keep in mind, you know, what we're giving to the Chamber of Commerce, et cetera. You know, we've bumped this down to, 15,000. I don't know, like I'm tempted to say something like 10 to 12,000.
Including the visitor center aid in there, so we were
Yeah. Another
Yeah.
2 to 5 base or No,
I'd be happy to support 12 grand or 12.5 at the difference, including visitor center. And that's on top of their 20 grand a year. What do you think?
yeah.
Well, fine, yeah.
Yeah, let's put 12.5 in terms of the one-time funding for them. And that thankfully takes us to the end of that list. What's your two preference? Do you want to put that in the sheet now and we trying to make final decisions, or you want to just back one more time and kind of review the first?
I think we can try and finalize this. We obviously have the first draft of the budget presenting after this report, and then that will be coming back.
Yeah.
So if there's, you can always tweak the requisition amounts through that process.
Okay. So we've made some more painful slashes. Let's see what Colin's got for bottom line for us. We can always change things again here if we're like, oh, we got a few extra funds, we want to add to one or two of these, we can go back and look at them.
I changed, yeah, this was used to be,
Yeah.
this is gone. Okay. Everything else was the same.
Do you want to take a few minutes, Colin?
Just a minute or two, yeah, just to make sure we're correct.
Sure, let's call a 5-minute recess, give you guys a chance.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Here, okay, call the meeting back to order. And then I'll look to staff when you're ready to give us a tally of what we just did.
Okay, great. We can start with 2108. So I've just kind of plugged all these numbers into the spreadsheet, and in that I've included an annual requisition increase of 3%, like on an annual basis going forward. That obviously, when you get into the later years of this like 5 or 6 year budget, it frees up some additional funding. Based on all the revised numbers, there's a surplus balance in 2026 of 44,000.
Which one? 2108?
2108, because we moved.
Oh, we've made the move, okay, so.
And that includes the move of pause and senior society.
Okay. Sorry, what was the surplus number again, Colin?
44,000.
Okay.
And then you'd have in 2027, a surplus balance of 47,000.
Right.
And then in 2028, it jumps up, but that's also when a lot of the long-term funding agreements are ending, so you probably need to revisit there anyways, but that jumps up to 95,000 based on what we have ending. In 2109, I have the same 3% increase on an annual basis. And for 2026, there's a surplus balance of 15,000, and that increases to just under 30,000 in 2027.
Also because some long terms finish up.
Yeah, there's tourism Pemberton and stewardship end in 2026. And those are the only two ones. So yeah, there's obviously probably gonna be some reapplications.
Okay, so assuming that all these groups reapply. For this year, we've created some space for one-time requests. We create, and in transferring, there's a bit of a ceiling there for this fund to grow over the years. Laura, are you with us? Okay, cool. So like transferring and tweaking the numbers, we have $44,000 surplus in 2108 and $15,000 surplus in 2109. So everything's covered to that degree. We can, if we want to, recognizing that there's a decent surplus, we can add a couple bucks back to some of these requests if anybody on the committee so chooses. And again, it leaves some room for one-time requests to come through. So what are your thoughts on where we've landed?
So could we put the seniors back to what they were requesting then?
Yeah.
And still be,
Yeah, we could put.
I would like to see that happen.
I kind of feel like I'd like to put the. You can sort of, let me, first of all, let me flesh that one out with the rest of the committee. Everybody okay with that suggestion? Going back, I think that's an additional 2,000, right?
2,900, so 10,900 would be the.
And we did move seniors to 2109.
Yeah.
So there's always, if you want to increase that, there's always the option of swapping seniors and the farmers market.
I think we can,
It's up to you guys, just a idea.
since we've now ended up with a bigger surplus in arts, I mean.
Right, yes,
We do
exactly.
get more applications.
But yes, that's a good point. There's probably likely to be more one-time applications in arts and culture than there is in the economic
Right.
development, so.
Okay. Everybody good with going back to the original 10,900 for seniors? Not hearing otherwise? What about the other one that
Red Devils.
was a big, very big kind, I guess, is the Red Devils. Would anybody like to go
Back to 10.
back to 10, which was our December? They asked for 12,500.
They asked for 15 and we adjusted to 12,500.
They asked for
And then we put
15.
it down to 10 and now they're down to 8.
Would we like to go back to 10 on the Devils then? We'd have room for that.
Let me see, so they asked for 15, we went to 12,500, we went to 8, now we're back to 10.
That's.
They did go to
Can we
12,500 because we
can-
did that 50% adjustment.
Can we afford the 12,500 then?
Yes.
Yep, that should work.
Okay, so they asked for 15. I would do the 12,500.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing two other nodding heads. Okay, any other adjustments or what we've landed on this? On once? Twice? Yeah, so the motion. We're gonna break it down into three. First motion is that both 2108 and 2109 get a 3% requisition increase for 2026. Moved by Director Mack, second by Director Kent. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second motion is that the senior society and pause funding requests get moved from 2108 to 2109. Moved by Director Kenneth, second by Director Mack. Any opposed? Motion carries. The third resolution is that can we do all those in one? Like, how do you want to do that and list them out? What's your best way for, you want me to do each one of them real quick?
We can do them all as a clump together, that they all be passed and we've got all the wording. We do kind of have to go through each of them because each of them are assigned different cost centers, but
Right.
yeah, but they can all be passed as a group if everyone agrees to.
So a
Yeah.
motion that the previous committee approve the following funding requests.
Right. Yeah, volleyball, 7,500 per year.
Do you want the cost center?
Yeah, 2108.
Center 2108.
Pemberton Valley Senior Society, 10,900 per year and cost center 2108.
No.
2109.
29. Pemberton Youth Soccer Association, 4,500 per year and 2108. Pemberton Farmers Market Association, $8,000 in 2108. Sea to Sky Invasive Species is $3,000 in 2108.
That's it.
$1,000.
I'm sorry, 1,000, 3,000
a year.
total, 1,000 a year for 3 years on that one, but the rest of that.
That's.
Yeah, 12.
Yeah, so 12,500 per year in 2108 for the Red Devils Alumni Association. 8,000 per year for 5 years in 2109 for the Pemberton and District Healthcare. Pemberton and District Chamber of Commerce will be 23,500 for 5 years in 2109. Pemberton Animal Wellbeing Society pause will be 10,000 per year for 2 years in 2109. Pemberton Arts Council, a $3,000 increase for 3 years in 2108. No to the surplus. $1,500 and 2108 for one-time funding for a coal valley. And then we have there. And then 12,500 and 2109 for tourism Pemberton for a one-time funding request.
Yeah. Moved by Director Matt, second by Director Kennett. Any further discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey. It gets easy from here. Hi Suzanne, we're on to the preliminary draft budgets for this.
Good afternoon, this is Suzanne LaFrance, Director of Finance. And I'm here to present the first draft of the shared Pemberton Valley budgets, which is the Village of Pemberton and Area C. And these budgets use the 2026 completed rural assessment values, which is the most recent values. The change from last roll, which is the 2025 revised roll, is a 3.5% increase for the Village of Pemberton and 8% increase for the electoral area C. These budgets as presented show a estimated change per $500,000 residential assessment of $11.78. But we have some changes to do since the last discussion. And we'll go to the first budget, which is the Pemberton Fire Rescue Service. And this hasn't been finalized at this point, but this was the preliminary discussed amount. It is an increase over last year, more so than normal because we had that requisition limit last year that we couldn't pull the full amount, but now that's been rectified, and so we're recovering the amount we couldn't recover last year, which was $54,087. So this will most likely come back to this committee for finalization. We don't have to adopt this one now because that preliminary figure may change. The next budget we have is the Permanent Search and Rescue budget. And this was as requested by the Pemberton SAR Society. They did ask for an increase this year. It's a 51% increase, which is $23,000. And I suggest that we potentially request them come as a delegation in February to discuss their budgets.
Do you want that in a motion?
Sure, yeah.
We get a motion to
Yeah.
request PSAR to come present their budget.
I'll move that.
Second by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, great. We'll move on to the next budget, which is the Pemberton Refuse Grounds. This year, the budget is very stable and we didn't have to increase the requisition. There was increased recycling revenue received, which helped. And also, we saved some money on some of the operating expenses. There was a carry forward surplus of $145,000 for 2026, and so we were able to transfer some to surplus reserve as well. So now our surplus reserve is at the minimum recommended as per the policy, which is 2 months of operating or $144,000. So now we have that in reserve that we can pull in the future to offset tax requisitions or for any projects or any operating reasons.
So a question on that, Suzanne, and in a couple budgets, but especially this one, when you look at the percentage change over the 2025 forecast, is the reason, like, to me, it feels like we're holding money in here that we don't, or we're collecting and holding money in here in this service that we don't need to. And when you look at, and that's coming from me trying to figure out the again, the percentage change over 2025 forecast. So is that just because we're building up our reserve to that point that you just described, or it seems to me like You know, with that said, we're over on quite a few of these. Why wouldn't we reduce the budget on some of those that the forecast isn't even close?
Well, for the forecast for contract services in particular, we're estimating a lot of GFL servicing costs. Depends how much they have to service it, depends on the landfill fees that they have to pay, which have been increasing. And so that's part of why we want to make sure we have enough to cover those unknowns. And the other item is the contingency. So we had a contingency amount in here for a renewed contract price, I believe. And I'm not sure. Yes, Mary Lou, and I'll call it Mary Lou to discuss this more in depth. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'm sorry if I don't have the date exactly, but we came to the board for like request from the contractor to increase their costs. So we use that contingency. So that cost increased quite a bit. And as Suzanne was saying, like the hauling and tipping fees is so variable that it's really hard to predict. So we want to make sure we have enough without asking for too much. But we know that tipping fees increase on an annual basis in Western. And it's something that we haven't been doing in within the SRD for our facilities. And as we can see, there's a huge gap between the revenue that we receive from tipping fees and what we pay for tipping fees on top of GFL hauling cost. So it's finding that balance in between what we predict, the real cost, and not asking for too much either.
And so we need both a contingency and a reserve to be able to cover that event, or like it seems to me.
We reduced the contingency to 30,000 this year from 60,
Right.
and that's just for anything really unexpected.
And then a reserve of what? What would we end up at?
And we transferred 124,000 to the operational services. The other item that we always have enough funds, because there's lots of unknowns, is the service site maintenance. We don't know how much it's gonna snow, how much.
If there's need for repairs, while we don't own many of the equipment, we still own a few, and we need to be ready for any regular maintenance as well as just unpredicted emergency.
And again, and I'm not pushing on this, I just want to be clear on it so I understand, because I don't want to hold money and cut. We're gonna be collecting more in other services. It's nice to have one that's stable, maybe even possibly reduce. So my question is, the contingency, and we need both the contingency, in your professional opinion, the contingency and the reserve to cover those unforeseens potentially. Like we should keep both of those.
The contingency we use as a placeholder for expenses that we might incur in the current year, and then the reserve is really for future years where we maybe need to reduce requisition because a new topic has come up. So that they kind of are using the same purpose, but the contingency is really for this current year and the reserve for future years.
Okay. Sorry, I took over that conversation. Any questions from the committee? Okay. Do we foresee any changes coming to this, or if the committee's happy, we can adopt it?
You can recommend it for approval of board.
I'll move that.
Yeah. Seconder, Director Ramsden, any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next budget thing, permanent TV and radio. We're just maintaining a small contingency in case there's any requirements for us to do anything on that land site. I haven't heard anything about it. It's been many years, but I think just one more year we'll hold that fund, and then we could potentially have a negative requisition, which would just send that back to the current service.
Questions? Like to move recommendation to the board to adopt? Did I do that right? And to approve? Director Mack, second by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Oh, did you have a question, Laura?
No, I think she's just gonna second it.
Yeah, any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next service is the 2108 that was just discussed, the Pemberton District Arts and Culture Recreation Grants Fund. And I can move this to a 3% increase and bring it back to the February PBIS.
You want to move that in favor? We've already put that in.
I think it's already in
Yeah.
the previous, yeah, I don't think there's a motion needed. And same for 2021-09, the Economic Development Grants Fund, I'll increase that to 3%. Shouldn't be a problem there. And then we have, the Pemberton District Museum and Archives, they asked for a 2% increase, which is $5,287. Did you want the Pemberton Museum to come as a delegation as well to the February meeting?
Would you like? Yes. So move that the museum comes as a delegation, moved by Director Mack.
Yeah.
Seconded by Director Ramsden. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The Pemberton Library, they've asked for a 7% increase. There was additional items added to their budget request. They're looking at building updates and things like that. The dollar amount is 35,703 is the increase. Did you want them to come and discuss this?
I thought it was I thought they came automatically in the library every year. Representing.
Come every year, so.
So, yeah. I mean, the answer is yes for, definitely yes, but I just thought it was an automatic, so that's in case it's not, let's move it.
Yeah.
Director Mack, second by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And then the Area C Village Permanent Cemetery Service, we didn't receive a request this year again. We haven't received a request for a few years now, so I'm under the impression that it's not needed, the funding. So I think I'm just requesting the admin fee at this point. And we still have time to get a request from them and add it in. We don't have to approve this as is. We'll give them a couple more months, hopefully, and they'll send a request if they need the funds.
Yeah, let's wait and see. I mean, I feel like they've plateaued a little bit, and once they did the improvements a couple of years ago, it's a little bit of maintenance cost, which is a lot of volunteer, I believe, right?
Pretty minimal, really, so.
Okay, let's leave it for a month or two, just in case they come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all the budgets, unless there's any other discussion.
Any questions or requests from Susanna and her team? Seeing none,
Thank you.
we'll see you in a month. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Okay. There you have it. Decision on late business. We have none. Director's notice of motion. Motion adjourned. Kennett, second by Director Mack. Opposed. Adjourned.